have you ever put on, I don't know, high heels or your best suit or whatever clothes make you feel good, and you step into this more confident version of yourself? Well, there are actual studies that show when we put things on that make us feel great and more confident, we act as that we are more confident, right? So there are actual studies. Then we are going to actually talk about that today with our guest, Todd Herman. He is an amazing coach to some of the top athletes and business executives out there. And he is the author of the best-selling book, The Alter Ego Effect. Love this freaking book. So good. Now, I know the power personally of having an alter ego that allows you to step into a bigger version of yourself. I know that personally. It allowed me to do amazing things in my own career. And I know that you can have that same experience as well, so that you can be more confident on camera and deliver better information, better value to your audience, and that you can be more uniquely you. Now, here's the question. Is that actually authentic? Because we talk about being uniquely you around here and being more authentic, a true version of authentic, not that whole fake authenticity we see going around these days. So we are going to dig into all of that and more. Welcome, Todd. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here with the Protrucinator.
I got a new name.
Yes.
Wait, hold on.
Let
me change my name right here.
Yeah.
So Todd and I actually go way back, even though we didn't know it until recently. And we'll get into all of that later. But real quick, little note, you know that we do the countdown timers before. If you watch us live, we have dancing, we have music while we're in the pre-show. And I learned something about Todd. You used to teach dance.
I did. My first job when I was it wasn't my first job ever, but my job while I was in university and college while I played football was I taught two-stepping, country dancing, at the Cook County Saloon in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, the largest country bar in the city, on ladies' nights, which was Tuesday night. And as an 18-year-old, one guy with a lot of ladies around teaching them how to two-step, it was a smart move.
I bet it was. So, interesting tidbit, just to kick this off. I had no idea.
Just to kick it off.
Off. So, Todd,
I haven't kicked off any other interview ever with that little nugget.
See, the Protrucinator, is that one? I need to learn how to say my own name. Is also getting more information out of you than anybody else. I'll just take it. So, Todd, and by the way, before we get into all of this information, I want you watching right now to bring your questions. Callie is grabbing the questions as we go. We are going to have a deep conversation, but we will have Q&A at the end as well. And I want to make sure that you get what you need out of this time with Todd. So Todd, first of all, what is an alter ego?
Sure. So an alter ego goes back. It was coined first by the really famous Roman statesman and philosopher Cicero back in 44 BC in a letter to a friend when he was unpacking kind of his success psychology, or the things that helped him lead such a successful life. Was the alter ego, when he first coined it, meant the other I or trusted friend within. And the context around that was that this model that he used in his mind to help him step into the higher and better versions of himself, to help him navigate and do the very difficult and challenging things that he was doing. it's baked into the human psychology. We all use the concept of an alter ego when we're young kids, when we're playing around with our creative imagination, when we're young and we are standing on the sofa and we're pretending to be Wonder Woman or Superman or Black Panther nowadays to jump off to see how far we can go, or when we're in the front driveway and we're playing sports and we're stepping into our alter ego of our favorite athletes, LeBron James or Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, insert the name of anybody else, or when we're sitting at the piano and we're pretending to be Mozart or something. And all it is just someone saying, you know what, I know I have my current limitations, maybe with my skills or my talents, or, could be with my size, or could be with what I believe that I can do. But I know what LeBron can do, or I know what my favorite actor, Daniel Day-Lewis, can do. And so I'm going to pretend to be them, or I'm going to step into their qualities. And somehow it disassociates you from your own narrative and story and allows you to be more of what you want to be more of yourself. And so I discovered this when I started my coaching and training company in 1997.
Yeah.
Long before there was actually coaching as a industry.
As a business, yeah.
And then a few years into it, when I started working with more and more professional athletes and Olympic athletes, this common thread was weaved between the ones who were consistently performing at their best. And it was that they would mention that they had a persona that they would step into, or they had this sort of performance identity or this alter ego that they would use when they would get into the pool, or when they would get onto the slopes, or when they would get onto the court or the field. And then I just noticed that this kept on being brought up, and I started building out the actual model for how you can use this intentionally to activate the qualities and traits that you most want to deliver to this one specific field of your play.
Yeah. And we're going to get into how you actually do that a little later on in this show. But a lot of people are saying that they've done something like this in the comments. But there's also a lot of need for clarity around what is okay
Absolutely.
and what is not okay when it comes to an alter ego. So, you said on your website, toddherman.me, by the way, guys, make sure you click that link in the description. You said the person you present to others is the person they believe you are. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have the greatest relationship with the rest of the personal development self-help world. And some of that is because I'm a practitioner. So we were mentioning this before. I'm 20, coming up on my 23rd anniversary of my one business starting, the one that I originally started with, my sports business, and I've launched many other companies and sold some and stuff since then. But I have almost coming up on 18,000 plus hours of working with just one-on-one clients.
Yeah.
So that's me and you personally talking, you unpacking kind of the little puppet strings that can hold you back. Some of them you can't even see or you don't understand, where the behavior change is being held back on. And that's really important for people to understand. And that's because a lot of the ideas sometimes that end up becoming paradigms that people live through that are propagated in self-help and personal development books are not written by people who actually do the work every single day. They're not people who are practitioners. They're people who do research, or some of them are just writing a book because they want to build up their platform. Right. And that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. But I'm very deliberate in how I get advice. I only get advice from people who are practitioners. And what that means is I ignore a lot of the best-selling books that are out there, because best-selling books carry with them a lot of times very palatable ideas. They sound wonderful. They sound nice. They sound an easier way to get to where you want to go, but they break under the weight and friction of performance and the field of play. And so, when you think about how we all show up in the world, one of the great frustrations for creators like people that are watching this is, that you've got more stuff inside of you, but it's not being represented in the stuff that's showing up out there that other people are interacting with. Okay. And so and that's where the tension lies. You're like, this is what they're seeing, but this is what I've got.
Right.
And that bridge that your stuff has to get out and onto is where we pass a lot of judgment our way, a lot of criticism our own way. It's our own personal psychology, self-worth, self-esteem that we're judging, because I'm not showing up like I know that I could. And that's where I sit. I'm the guy who sits on that frickin' bridge right there. And that's where I've made my home. That's where I've lived. That's where I've built all my businesses. Is I want to sit on that bridge and give people proven paradigms, proven ways scientifically of actually just how the brain is structured, so that I'm not giving you things that are going to run counter to just biologically, chemically, psychologically, kinesthetically, how human beings are actually built. And it's just one thing just to never forget this. At the end of the day, we are judged by what we do.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with a lot of the self-help world, is they go, no, we're human beings. Well, but in the context of business and in the context of being a creator, no, you're a human doing. Because you're only rewarded by what you're rewarded by what you do. Now, if you're someone who wants to live in the average middle of society, then sure, continue to act through the paradigms of being a human being. And again, it's a wonderful idea, but again, that is where the friction lies. You are a human being, but the stuff that you get out there is the doing side of things. And when you look at the doing side of stuff that you're getting out there, that is where you have the friction. And so, yeah, anyways, we are, whether we like it or not, that's the way that the world works and how we each work with each other. We're judged by what we do. That's why, like, one of the great quotes is, around, a measure of a person is how they leave the other person after they leave, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm a challenger personality type, and it's, I work with really massive egos in sport and public figures and leaders. But at the end of the day, I know I'm kind. My intentions are always extremely true. I care a lot about my clientele. I care a lot about even this interview right here. Like, I want to make sure that whether you like me or not, the stuff I'm saying is backed by truth,
Exactly.
not by what is. I'm not here to build up a bunch of friends. I'm here to truly, in some cases, there's going to be one person that needs to hear a message in a certain way, and sometimes it has to come across like a straight punch to the jaw, where it wakes you the F up.
Yeah.
And that's one of my purposes in life.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to make sure that you guys, because you're used to my soft pushing, and you get David's hard pushing around here as well. But I want you to come into this conversation, because we are going to talk about some things, especially around whether this concept is actually authentic. We will get into some things that may be hard for you to hear. So come at this with an open mind and allow yourself to be pushed and challenged so that you can live that bigger life, right? And
to even that point right there, and this goes with all of your programming, is, one of the first things that I tell people once they come into any of our training programs, or when I'm standing on stage at the big events that we'll put on, is I want you to ask yourself right now, how willing are you to be coached?
Yeah.
Like, how willing are you to be coached? Because there's a reason why the elite remain elite. It's they love the accountability of having someone else hold them to a standard that they say that they want. And one thing when it comes to coaching is that if you're not willing to be honest and truthful about where you're at, your own psychology, admitting to the data that you've got in front of you about what you're actually doing to lead to your success, then if you're not willing to be honest and truthful about those things, then you're not really someone who's willing to be coached right now. And that was a hard lesson I had to take from one of my mentors, because he just confronted me one day. He's like, Todd, you say that you want coaching, but you don't want to be coached. You're too wrapped up in your own ego, to defend your own ideas and excuses as to why you can't get somewhere, but you don't want to be coached.
Yeah.
And until you want to mature to a level of being an adult and you want to be coached, you're going to get very, very poor results.
I love that. And I just want to give a special shout out to all of our participants in LIDA right now, which is live every day in August, that we run a free challenge for people helping them get more confident on camera. But I push
Yeah.
them so freaking hard to get it. They come in thinking about it. It's like, oh, on camera tips. And it's really about this and this.
Yeah.
And they are doing the work. And I see a lot of you in the comments right now. And I just want to say, you are willing to be coached, and I want to thank you for that. If you're not, then be honest with that. Okay, so we did have a question from Paul Burke saying, Todd, is one's goal to eventually become that alter ego? If it's what we aspire to, should it be our goal to become that outside of the performance or on the field?
Yeah. Yeah. So great question. And that's a little bit of the kind of the misnomer with the concept itself, is that we're using the alter ego itself is just another tool that you can use in your toolkit of navigating your own mental inner game stuff. And it's a useful mental model. There's many mental models that are out there that we can all tap into. Like confirmation bias is an example of a mental model that you can use to kind of explain why someone has a certain course of action, right? Well, an alter ego is a useful mental model to help people navigate that event horizon area of your life when you're trying to pursue something new. You're up against what people would call maybe their comfort zone, and there's a lot of friction that's there. Anytime you're starting something new, or you're developing into a new version of yourself so you can go and tackle something that's bigger. People could be you're getting a new promotion, you're stepping into a new role in your life of being a parent, or becoming you're hiring people to come inside. You were a solo entrepreneur, now you're going to be responsible for one or two or three more people, and now you're not just leading yourself, you're now leading other people, right? Well, the version of you that got you to where you are is not going to be the version of you that gets you to where you want to go.
Yes.
There are certain qualities about you that are going to be inherent. So I want to kind of allay some people's fears around, we're not defying any of your value sets, right? So if you're someone like, I'm someone who values fairness highly, it's kind of one of the ruling kind of puppet strings of my life. And I could try and understand it more as to like, why is it there? But for me, I don't really care about why it's there. It's just, that's kind of something that's baked into me. But the alter ego itself, it's not that you're going to become the alter ego. The way to think about it is, the alter ego is a model for how you see yourself, or how you desire to see yourself showing up in this one specific area of your life. One of the great misnomers of life is that you have this one identity. There's one Luria, right? And there isn't one Luria. There's a Luria that shows up on, the camera, and, you do your dance routine for the 10 minutes leading up, and it's very extroverted side of you and very playful and creative side of you. But then there's the other side of you that would also probably show up in a coaching way. And there's a little slight difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
And even me, like, I know how I define myself with intention of how I want to show up as a coach and mentor and advisor to my clientele and to the students that we have. But the last thing that my kids want when I get home or when I leave this office is to have a challenger dad.
Yeah.
Right? Like what they want is a creative and playful and imaginative and fun dad to be around. So, when I was stepping into this new role of fatherhood like 7 years ago, I was like, okay, well, who's the model that I would love to grow into for my kids? And for me, it was two people specifically. It was my own dad, which is some of the very rooted. He's a farmer and a rancher, and that's how I grew up, as on a farm kid. And now I'm raising a family in New York City. But so my dad was one, but then Mr. Rogers was the other. And when you think about all day long, I'm flexing, just really think about this for everybody else, like really relate this to yourself. In order for you to be successful in what you're doing right now, there are certain traits and habits that you're flexing every single day. And what people don't realize is personality is a habit. It's something that you keep on doing every single day, and all of a sudden it forms just how you start showing up naturally. Well, if I'm a challenger personality type and I'm really trying to break through sometimes the hard exteriors of people's egos so that I can get into the soft core of their own insecurities so that I can pull them out of them and hand them a new paradigm for them to be living through. That's me flexing that muscle for 8 to 10 hours a day with my clients. Now, what I hear a lot, and I've worked with Green Berets, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs. I've worked with athletes. Like, I've worked across a lot of spectrums. And a common theme that I hear from people is that I have a really hard time turning it off when I get home. Okay.
Yep.
And that's a reality that we all have to live with. It's like gravity of life.
Yeah.
Now, and that's fine. Now, where you're kind of getting challenged is because you're seeing yourself as this one identity. You describe yourself as this one person.
Yeah,
I'm an extrovert. I'm an introvert. There's no such thing as an introvert in all areas of your life, because in your family you might be the extroverted, funny one, but in another context of your life you might be introverted when you're around people that you don't know. So, anyways, when I get home, when I get home. I have and we're going to get into this, like how you actually create this, but I have a model in my mind of, okay, well, Mr. Rogers, how would Mr. Rogers do this? And I'm never going to be a fake version of Mr. Rogers, but just asking myself these questions and using stuff like totems and artifacts and uniforms and things like this, I can honor the idea of how I want to be more consistently so that I don't default into a rut of being one individual. I'm very intentional about how I know human beings. One of our greatest gifts is that we are creators. Yeah. We are able to create anything. We are able to create any version of ourselves. And most people live inside of a paradigm of, well, I've always been this way. Right. Okay. Well, then that's you. You're now existing underneath a weighted paradigm that's going to trap you. Yeah.
So lots of so much good stuff there. And I wish we had like hours to unpack all of this. But really, before we get into the how you actually do it, and I know you guys want to hear that, I do want to tackle the biggest issue that I see with you, our audience, which is how do I make all of this stuff that you're talking about feel authentic, right? There's a disconnect, and Todd is the global expert on identity, and which goes into, authenticity. So you guys know me. I hate the word authenticity because so many people take it at this surface level. Look at me, I'm authentic. And it's so not true. And I push people to dive deeper and to be really vulnerable, as opposed to, that doesn't mean you have to cry, but for some people it's crying, but it doesn't really mean that. It means that you're showing a deeper part of yourself, the flaws and all. And that is something that I truly believe is so important in the content that we create online, the social posts that we put out there, and in our lives and businesses. We all, on the business side, we try and build businesses that match what we're told is supposed to be, when in fact we need to be more authentic with what we're trying to build. Anyway, so how does the alter ego, if we're trying to step into this other version of ourselves, right? Or like how you phrase it, how does that match authenticity?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were talking about this briefly before, and then you were like, stop.
I was like,
stop.
shut up.
To save this for the shut up.
I never
I need to hear this fresh.
Yes. I never let interviewees like talk before the show. I'm like, let's talk about bacon or eggs or whatever you had for breakfast, not this.
So, let's just kind of dive into kind of like some of this explains why you have an aversion to the word authenticity. I do as well. So like authenticity, or the word authentic, in their kind of root form, wonderful ideas, right? But words end up moving inside of cultures, and then cultures end up shifting and morphing and changing the word. They add more meaning to it, right? And so lately, I would say it's a very recent thing. Authenticity and authentic stuff wasn't really a really popular topic even, in 2005, right? Or 13 years ago. It's very much real now, and some of that's because of the the proliferation of social media, and that people are essentially on social media creating avatars of themselves. You're not sharing everything.
Right.
And so
And
now,
before you
yeah,
dig into that, can I give my example of Callie Lewis real quick? Just to
yeah,
give some
yeah.
context in terms of what you were talking about there. Like, so Todd actually used to watch me when I had my old show, Geek Brief and Geek Beat, as the avatar Callie Lewis. And that was me. But for 10 years, I created this perfect version of me. It had all my good stuff and a couple
Mm-hmm.
of surface level flaws, like I would include bloopers in my videos and things like that. But it
Yeah.
wasn't me because I mean, I'm half Italian. I drink wine from the jug. It's like, so, but I wouldn't ever drink wine in public because I was afraid because people told me in my past that was inappropriate or whatever. And like,
Sure.
so there's these like, or I wouldn't allow people to see the real flaws that were more deep down, that I try and hide away. That's what he
Yeah.
means by this avatar that we're presenting to the world. I know it intimately. I did it for 10 years. Now,
Yeah.
I will also say that on the flip side of that, having the avatar of Callie Lewis did me a great service because I was.
That's my point.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
100%.
Then I'll let
That's
you.
so important that you said that. Is so many people are trying to get perfect with the avatar instead of realizing that so much of life is an unfolding. You could never have gotten to the place of talking about uniquely you without you have gone through the experience of being Callie. And so what I never want to do as a coach, trainer, anything is rob people of the opportunity for them to go through the valley of complexity or the valley of difficulty. And this is where people get it all wrong with how they coach people.
Okay.
So you've got someone who's standing here and they want to get to the mountaintop over here. And so what they say and how they sell it is they go, oh, I'm going to build you a bridge from this hill over top of this chasm that's here so that you can get there faster and without all the difficulties that I went through. And that isn't doing people the proper service. The way that I do it with people is I say, I want you to go from here to wherever you say that you want to go over here. But here's what I want to help you with. I want to help you and push you down here into the brambles, the briars, and the bogs. But I'm going to help get you through that faster than if you did it on your own, because I want you to have the scrapes and the pricks and the mud on you of experience so that you develop wisdom. Because when you just take someone across a bridge, they haven't earned the wisdom. And mental toughness is obviously something that I've, it's a big part of my company and what I'm known for.
Right.
And mental toughness is an earned thing, not a learned thing. You can't learn mental toughness. We can talk about principles and rules, but you have to earn it. That's what you're doing right now with the LEDA stuff, is you're helping people to earn a more confident version of themselves by getting them to go live daily, right? Now you're earning a better version of yourself. You're earning the skills. You can't learn them. You've got to earn them. And so my point about that is you walked through and discovered this whole Callie Lewis thing, and then it also allowed you to develop and step into more of the Luria that shows up now. So while everyone is so worried about being authentic, they're putting carts before horses sometimes. Sometimes you need to just go out there and test it and then realize that you don't like the way that shows up. You're like, oh, it doesn't like the way it feels. But don't get that confused with the natural evolution of how skills work, which is anytime. It's like, you do the whole fold your arm things and then you say, okay, now can you switch it over and can you do it this way? It feels weird, right?
Yeah.
Well, anytime you're going to be stepping into a new role in life, it can feel weird for yourself. And I don't apologize for that. That's just how it freaking works, right? So, getting back to the whole idea of authenticity, that one of the kind of core ideas that traps people, I talk about it in the book. There's a lot of science as to why all this works so well, but one of the most one of the core sort of foundational principles of psychology and the spiritual traditions is talking about this authentic self or this one self. People nowadays might call it their real self. And the problem with that, so that was a huge part of the psychology world. They
Yeah.
called it single self theory, meaning that people who had a single identity that they attached themselves to were the healthiest mentally. They had the lowest rates of depression, anxiety disorders, and stress disorders. Now, I'm a guy who's on the field of play every day, and I'll ask people this one question. Have you ever met someone who's a public figure? And when you met them, you're like, oh, they're a lot different than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
That's kind of like life, right?
Mhm.
And my response to that is, well, of course they are. Like my athlete who's out there, you don't want him operating in the regular world or her operating in the regular world because they're way more intense, and that would really ruin a lot of relationships. So they have a performance identity that they take out there. And so in about
Then why in my career, every time somebody meets me, they're like the exact opposite. You're exactly who you are on camera.
Yeah. So, but that evolved and that developed. So there's an intensity. It all depends on the context of the worlds that they're experiencing people through. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So your world of the way that you teach and you show up can actually look very similar to the other public world that you also walk into when you're out in public with other people. Okay. But there's an intensity to a field, a tennis court or something. There's an intensity to a newsroom, or there's a different type of character that Jason Alexander is bringing to George Costanza than he is in real life, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. But what you're talking about, that's kind of one of the things that you're trying to bring to people is this uniquely you thing, right? Where it's like,
but it's
hey,
different than what you're talking about, is what I'm getting.
It's still different. Like,
okay.
And who cares if there's this like kind of very quirky performer person who comes up on camera, and that's your way of differentiating your brand in the way that you teach, but maybe you don't act all super quirky or whatever when you're out in public life.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not dancing down the streets, that's for sure.
But you got some good moves, so I wouldn't object against it.
Says the dance teacher.
Yeah, right. So just to carry this forward then with people is that I lost my train of thought before we were just chatting.
Essentially, you got it.
Yeah, no. So as we evolve in the what I was going to say was, so single self theory was common. Now in 2008. The world of psychology completely flipped. In fact, like 3 foundational principles of psychology got kind of crumbled. There's a couple of studies that were proven to be false, and which actually created very much the platform of psychology. But one of them was single self theory. And now one of the fastest growing fields of study in the world of psychology is multiple self theory. It's not even a theory, it's just a reality. The reality is that we have multiple selves. We have multiple sides of ourselves, and it's because we play many roles in life. And the people now who see themselves having many selves, multiple selves, are actually the healthiest mentally. They have the lowest rates of depression. They have lower